Welcome back to another clay video. Today we are going to create the world map of South Island from Sonic. I recently bought a bunch of wooden blocks of different shapes and sizes to use as bases for my maps, and I feel like this circle is going to work perfect for this map. As usual, I'm going to take some blue clay and some white clay and lightly mix them together for the water. It's mostly blue, but it has these nice little white swirls in which just give a little bit of extra detail to the water. Now let's get it nice and flat and then we can lay it over our wooden block. Now this is actually the very first Sonic thing I've ever created, not even just for videos, just in general. I've never made something Sonic with clay. Usually when I make maps, I'm able to use a paper printout, which helps a lot to make sure I have the right size and placement of all of the land masses. But for this one, I don't really have that luxury because we have this and this to work off of. So I'm just gonna kind of have to eyeball it and hope for the best. Starting out with a little beach here on the front. And then we can trim it down to make room for the land. Now, I do like Sonic games, however, I haven't played a lot of them. Most of my experience playing Sonic games is newer 3D ones. I honestly have not played the old classic ones. So my knowledge of this map is somewhat limited. I did do a little bit of research on the wiki about it, but I know that doesn't compare to actually playing the games. Now this is where the waterway is gonna go, and it's gonna be a little tricky to figure out how to get this to be the right shape and kind of work up to the top mountains in the back, but I think we'll get there. After all of our dirt is in place, we can start putting down some grass. For this, I just flatten out some little chunks of clay and kind of form them to roughly the right size, and then we can trim them up once we get it onto the landmass as well. It's a fairly straightforward process, but it's very effective. As I mentioned, I have a very limited knowledge of Sonic maps, so if you're a huge Sonic fan, let me know in the comments if there's other maps you would like me to create, because this was pretty fun and I like the look of everything Sonic, I just don't really know the world and the maps. When it comes to Sonic, there's one thing that you always need, and that is a loop. I would actually be amazed if there's a Sonic game that does not have a loop you can run around. I also added this little chunk on top because that seems to always be the case with these loops. Now we are going to mix the color for all of the rocks. If you're not familiar with clay mixing, you might think it only takes a few minutes, but this giant chunk of brown clay took me about an hour to mix. It's really hard to get the color right because you have to keep adding in little bits of darker colors or lighter colors, and you just keep mixing and mixing and you end up with this massive pile of clay that you're never going to use, but at least you got the right color. So I'm just forming them by making all of these random diagonal cuts. And basically we just need to keep randomly building them up until we get to the highest point in the back. I can honestly say building a map like this was super fun. I've pretty much never freehand made a map. I'm always using the paper stencil, and I think it actually turned out pretty accurate. Now, I want to first figure out where the waterway is going to go, so let's take a break from the rocks and work on the water. We need this part of the water to be higher up, so instead of using a bunch of blue clay, I'm just going to use the leftover from these rocks. So we're going to have the water go through this stream and up this rock and then even further up to the top of the mountain. So now with that in place, I think we can start working on the rest of this mountain peak, which again is just built by randomly stacking a bunch of jagged rocks. Now we need to create this fortress on the top, which I believe is Eggman's and also the final area of the game. At least, I hope so. Since everything having to do with Sonic enemies is typically robotic, I thought I would make this look like sort of a factory, so I made these little silos on top. Now let's start working on the water. Basically same thing I did for the brown clay here, we just need to flatten it out and fill in all of the little cracks. And then we can take the modeling tool and smooth everything out. Further up here, we can start working on the waterfalls, which was a lot of fun to work with. I haven't done very many waterfalls, but I always enjoy making them. So the waterfalls kind of randomly run down these rocks going down the whole mountain. I don't really know where they come from, but we're just gonna kind of make them come out of nowhere. There's a few different landmarks on the map. First of all is this kind of ruins cave over here. Second of all, we have what looks to be kind of like a museum over on the right side. Again, I'm sorry if I'm totally botching the names of these places, this is just complete speculation. Now for a final detail on our map, we are going to create a bunch of foliage. And the way that I always do this is by making a ton of tiny balls of clay and mixing them together. And after we roll them all together, we get this nice looking bush. I wanted to add some height to the bushes, so I put down this little blob of clay and we can stick a bush right on top of it. I've also made some little tiny bushes that can go on a few of the little edges of the cliff. With our final bush in place, now we are ready to get baked. After baking, there is nothing else we have to do, so here it is! South Island from Sonic. I hope you all enjoyed the video, and I hope you enjoyed my first Sonic creation. If you want to see more things from Sonic, let me know in the comments what you would like to see. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next one.